Welcome, political science students. We are welcome to the third semester political science. As you know, this course for political science major students. This course is divided into 5 modules, and Unit 4 is case study of USA and UK. The instructor for this unit is Mr. G. Ramesh, Assistant Professor, Department of Political Science, St. Joseph's College for Women, Autonomous, Visakhapatnam, Andhra Pradesh State, India. Learning outcomes. The fourth chapter of this unit is Separation of Powers Case Study, USA and UK. By the end of this chapter, the learner should be able to understand the conceptual framework, compare constitutional structures, the systems of UK, and analyze practical implementation, evaluate key legal cases and constitutional principles, Constitutional Reform Act 2005 in the UK, and develop critical perspectives. Content. This unit, that is separation of powers, and the fourth chapter is separation of powers case study of USA and UK. The content of this chapter are separation of powers in the United States, the executive branch in the United States, legislative branch in the US, judicial branch in the US, and separation of powers in the United Kingdom, executive branch in the UK, legislative branch and judicial branches in the UK, and finally conclusion. Now let's go into the lesson and look at the separation of powers case study USA and UK. Separation of powers case study. In this presentation, examines the doctrine of separation of powers is implemented in the United States and the United Kingdom. So the concept developed by Montesquieu aims to prevent tyranny by dividing government powers among different branches. So the US Constitution outlines the separation of powers among the legislative, executive and judicial branches. The system of checks and balances ensures that no one branch has too much power. The Supreme Court decision in Marbury versus Madison in 1803 established judicial review, while the impeachment of President Bill Clinton 1998 demonstrated the legislative branch's powers. The UK separation of powers has developed over time with significant reforms in 17th and 19th centuries. The UK Parliament is sovereign, but the judiciary has gained more independence and power through reforms like the Constitutional Reform Act 2005. The establishment of the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom 2009 marked a significant shift in the separation of powers. Separation of powers in the United States. The United States of America has a system of separation of powers with checks and balances. The legislative branch, Congress, make laws, can override presidential vetoes, approve or reject judicial appointments. And the legislative supremacy, Congress in the legislative branch holds significant power as its laws are supreme over the executive and judicial branches. So legislative branch can override presidential vetoes, approve the reject judicial appointments also. And the judiciary, Supreme Court, the judicial branch can review laws and actions of the other branches to ensure their constitutionality. Judicial branch can interpret the laws, can declare laws, executive actions unconstitutional according to the judicial power, judicial review power. The US has federal system with both a national government and state government sharing power, further dividing authority. So power divided between federal and state governments promotes balance and accountability. So the separation of powers is essential for effective governance, accountability, protection of individual rights in the United States of America. The executive branch in the US is led by the president and comprises various departments and agencies that work together to enforce the entire nation laws. So the president is head of the state and government, responsible for directing the executive branch and serving as commander-in-chief of the armed forces. They appoint federal judges, veto legislation and negotiable treaties. And the vice president supports the president and assumes the office if the president is unable to serve. The vice president is also the president of the Senate and casts their breaking vetoes. And the cabinet consists of vice president and the heads of the 15 executive departments. Appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate, these individuals are responsible for implementing policies and overseeing their respective departments. For example, State Department, Department of Defense, Department of Justice, Department of Interior, Department of Agriculture, Department of Commerce, Department of Labor, Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Housing and Urban Development, and Department of Transportation, Department of Energy, Department of Education, Department of Homeland Security. These are the cabinet advisors hold their offices. And executive agencies, in addition to the cabinet departments, there are numerous federal agencies, boards, commissions and committees that support the executive branch. Some of these agencies operate independently while the others are part of the executive departments. Legislative branch in the United States of America. The legislative branch is composed of Congress, which is divided into two chambers, House of Representatives and Senate. The Congress is bicameral with the Senate is an upper house and a House of Representatives is the lower house. Senators are elected for 6-year terms while representatives are elected for 2-year terms. So elected by the people serve 2-year terms and initiates revenue bills, impeaches federal officials. And the bills are introduced, debated and voted on by both houses. If approved, they are sent to the president for signature. But president term is 4 years. So the Senate members elected by the people serve 6 years terms, provides advice, consent on presidential appointments and tries impeachments. And the bills are introduced in the either chamber. Bills are reviewed and debated in committees. Bills are voted on by both chambers, Senate and House of Representatives. So differences between House and Senate versions are reconciled. So the final bill is voted on by both chambers. The President signs the bill into law or vetoes it. And our side, Congress conducts oversight of the executive branch by holding hearings, issuing subpoenas and investigating government's activities. So the legislative branch plays a crucial role in shaping the country's laws and policies, ensuring accountability and representing the interest of the citizen. Judicial branch in the US. The judicial branch is composed of Supreme Court, circuit courts, district courts. The highest court in the US is Supreme Court with 9 justices appointed for life. It has the power to judicial review and interpret the Constitution. The highest court in the US is Supreme Court. It interprets the Constitution and federal laws and has the final say on matters of federal laws and the Constitution. And the circuit courts are the appellate courts. Here appeals from lower courts and cover specific geographic areas. 13 circuit courts, here appeals from the district courts and federal agencies with judges appointed for life. And district courts are 19 district courts are trial courts with judges appointed for life. They handle federal, criminal and civil cases. So they cover specific geographic areas, the district courts also. So the judicial branch plays a crucial role in USA, interpreting the Constitution and federal laws, ensuring justice is served through fair and impartial trials, and protecting individual rights and freedoms. Separation of powers in the UK. The United Kingdom's system of government is characterized by parliamentary sovereignty, fusion of powers, judicial independence, unwritten constitution. The parliamentary sovereignty, the parliament, the legislative branch is supreme and its laws cannot be overturned by the courts. So parliament has the power to make or unmake any law. And the fusion of powers, the executive and legislative branches are fused, as the prime minister and their cabinet are members of the parliament. So the executive branch and the legislative branches are closely linked with the government drawn from the parliament. And judicial independence, the judiciary is independent and judges are appointed for life, ensuring they are not subject to political pressure. The judiciary is independent and impartial, interpreting laws and ensuring justice. Unwritten constitution, the UK has unwritten constitution based on statutes, common law and conventions, which makes it more flexible but also less explicit. So the UK constitution is not a codified in a single document. Important conventions and practices shape the system of the government in UK. Executive branch in the UK: monarch, prime minister, cabinet. The monarch serves as the head of the state with ceremonial and symbolic duties. And the prime minister is the head of the government chosen by the party with the most seats in parliament. The prime minister is the head of the government responsible for setting policy and overseeing the administration. And the cabinet advises the prime ministers and makes key decisions on policy and governance. So comprised of senior government ministers appointed by the prime minister. And also the civil services, the civil service provides administrative support to the government, implementing policies and delivering public services. The civil service is expected to remain neutral and impartial, serving the government of the day. Legislative and judicial branches in the UK. The legislative branch in the UK is composed of Parliament, lawmaking, judicial branch, European Union. So the Parliament consists of the House of Commons elected by the people and the House of Lords appointed by the monarch. Parliament consists of the Houses of Commons and House of the Lords. Parliament make laws, approves taxes and scrutinizes the government. And bills are introduced, debated and voted in the both houses. The monarch grants royal assent to approve bills, making them law. And the judicial branch in the UK, the judiciary is headed by the Supreme Court, established in 2009. It is independent of the executive and legislative branches. The Supreme Court is the highest court in the UK, interpreting laws and ensuring justice. And other courts such as the courts of appeal and the High Court hear cases and apply the law. And the European Union, the UK was a member of the European Union until 2020. The EU legal framework and institutional presented a challenges and to the United Kingdom system of separation of powers. The US and the UK have different approaches to the separation of powers. The US emphasizes checks and balances while UK emphasizes parliamentary sovereignty. So both systems have their strengths and weaknesses, and the ideal system continues to the debated. The theory of separation of power is fundamental concept in both the countries, USA and UK, shaping their systems of government. So the theory of separation of powers remains essential for protecting rights, promoting good governance and maintaining balance between the organs of the government. What have we learned? Understand the conceptual framework, compare constitutional structures to prevent the concentration of power and promote checks and balances, and analyze practical implementation, evaluate key legal cases and constitutional principles, and the Constitutional Reforms Act in the UK, and develop the critical perspectives on the strengths and limitations of separation of powers in modern governance. Thank you.